Tijuana's new migrant shelter, why this new location also brings new obstacles for some asylum seekers. And a break for residents in Barrio Logan, how a decision made today will send large trucks out of their neighborhood.
This package means that low-income kids from all neighborhoods will have access to the education they deserve and a real chance at success.
State lawmakers pitch a $2 billion investment in preschool. How many kids would the extra money support? And the name change coming to the San Diego Sports Arena. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. There's a new shelter for asylum seekers in Tijuana. The city closed the first shelter due to unsanitary conditions, but the new shelter's location presents new issues for people hoping to come to the U.S. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero has a story.
The new shelter is an abandoned concert hall called El Barretal in the eastern Tijuana neighborhood of Mariano Matamoros. It has more than enough room for everyone, with a capacity for 7,500. About 2,400 people have been brought here already. Migrants say it's better than the old facility. It's spacious, with a large parking area where people bring donations, enclosed areas that provide shelter from the rain. But it's a 30-minute drive from the San Isidro port of entry, where people who want to request asylum in the U.S. must put their names on a wait list, then follow up to check their status. Most people have no idea how to get there. Manuel Antonio Lopez says he fled Honduras after receiving death threats. He put his name on the wait list while at the old shelter, a short walk from the port. He was given a number on a scrap of notebook paper, 1,479.
I haven't gone back since I got here. I don't know the status of the list. If it's my turn yet, I don't know.
He says he has no money to pay for bus tickets to get to the port. This Honduran woman is also confused about the asylum process. She spoke on condition of anonymity because she fears for her life. She says she fled her country with her 2 daughters after her husband, an electrician, was killed for refusing to pay money to the gangs.
Someone put me down for asylum, but they didn't give me a number yet. They said they sent it to me through my phone.
She teared up in indignation and fear when talking about the lack of privacy at the shelter. Journalists are allowed to come in unsupervised. She says cameras are everywhere when she tries to shower with her daughters.
There isn't any privacy. The cameras are always focusing on us, taking photos all the time. We are not actors. Why are the cameras following us?
But she says she's going to try to have patience, because going back to Honduras isn't an option for her. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Most San Diegans think people who qualify for asylum should be allowed into the U.S. News Survey USA polls finds this opinion is more common here than other parts of the country. The polls for the Union Tribune and 10 News also find that 32% of people surveyed nationally say the caravan is not a major threat. 29% in San Diego. Still, 50% of San Diegans say President Trump was right to send troops to the border, and most agree that unauthorized immigration is a major problem. Another fall storm is making its way to San Diego, and Aaron Calandra tells us this one is expected to deliver even more rain than what we saw last week.
We are keeping a close eye on this low pressure system that is driving very slowly into the California coast. Right now, we're already seeing some rain to the north of Los Angeles. Here in Southern California, just a couple of clouds around. Now, we do expect that low pressure system to drive in on Wednesday. You'll notice some showers and then heavier rain, and we could see some heavy downpours right along the coast and also the burn scar regions. We do have concerns for flash flooding and also mudslides in that area. Here we are Wednesday, 9 a.m. You can see that rain, it's coming in. This is around lunchtime. San Diego getting wet. We will have some breaks at times, but the rain, it will continue off and on through Thursday. Now, once it's all said and done, we could see up to an inch of rain in spots. Now, that number could change. And as we continue through, you'll notice Thursday, maybe some storms popping up, but by Friday, we do expect to see drier conditions and warmer temperatures. I'll have more in just a few minutes.
Community activists celebrate a decision they say will lead to cleaner air in Barrio Logan. Today, the City Council adopted a new resolution. It calls for the city to establish a new route for large trucks. The Environmental Health Coalition says it has collected data that shows heavy trucks were sending harmful contaminants into neighborhoods. Thousands of credit checks are done every day on people trying to get a loan or a line of credit. But in this process, consumers can wind up wrongly linked to a government blacklist. iNews Source reporter Alon Stevens explains.
The Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC for short, keeps a financial blacklist that's filled with the names of international terrorist and drug cartel kingpins. The people on it are considered enemies of the U.S. Businesses and individuals are banned from doing business with them. That's why credit check companies run consumer names against the list on behalf of businesses offering loans and credit cards. But those credit check companies sometimes get it wrong. That's what happened with Alvaro Rodarte, a San Fernando Valley construction worker, when he tried to co-sign for a car loan.
I kept feeling like CIA or FBI or who knows what was about to kick down my door, take me in handcuffs and put me away.
The government never came calling in his case because he was in fact not on the list. A credit check company had misidentified him. David Long is a former U.S. Labor Department special agent and a criminal justice professor in San Diego. He says these kinds of OFAC false positives happen all the time, and faulty software is the problem.
Situation, though, has been with some programs of producing false positives for people that are not on the list, but are flagged by the software programs by the financial institution.
If you want to see if your name or people with similar names to yours are on the OFAC list, you can use a search tool on the Treasury Department's website. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Alon Stevens.
iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit media partner of KPBS. Arrests in California have declined dramatically. KPBS editor Tom Fudge has a closer look at the numbers released by the Public Policy Institute of California.
The PPIC study looked at arrests in California between 1980 and 2016. By 2016, arrest rates had dropped 58% from a high seen in 1989. Most of the overall decline came from plummeting numbers of arrests among the young. For instance, the arrest rate for those aged 17 or younger dropped by 84%. The numbers in the study reflect falling crime rates. They also reflect changes in the law that made, for instance, felony drug arrests also plummet just 4 years ago. Racial disparities among those arrested also declined, but much more modestly. African Americans were still 3 times more likely than whites to be arrested in California in 2016. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
The nation's largest city will make drone technology a bigger part of its police force. The NYPD is showing off its fleet of 14 drones. They will be used for hazmat and hostage situations and to reach inaccessible areas during search and rescue operations. Police officials say they understand the privacy concerns.
The NYPD is aware that there are some concerns about this announcement. So let me be clear, NYPD drones will not be used for warrantless surveillances. NYPD drones will be used to save lives.
The use of drones is a growing trend in law enforcement. Earlier this year, police in Chula Vista started using the technology. Dignitaries from around the world and everyday Americans are among those visiting the U.S. Capitol to pay their respects to former President George H.W. Bush. A touching moment came today when former Senator Bob Dole was helped out of his wheelchair to salute Bush. Dole is 95 and, like Bush, a World War II veteran. Dole also was a Republican nominee for president in 1996. KPBS will carry live coverage of the funeral of George H.W. Bush. Television coverage by PBS NewsHour will begin at 7 a.m. Radio coverage by NPR is scheduled to begin at 8. Democratic lawmakers in Sacramento want to spend an additional $2 billion on early childhood education. A package of bills under consideration would include a focus on preschool. Right now, the state covers preschool for about 175,000 children. This new proposal would create room for 110,000 more.
In education, early education, we're behind. And it's frankly embarrassing that we have plenty of states around the nation, including red states, not a partisan issue, who have stepped up and realized if you want to focus on student achievement, you start by investing in our youngest learners.
Supporters of the plan say it might be difficult to pass the bill due to the $2 billion cost. They believe the additional resources will improve test scores over time. Wildfires, homelessness, and poverty are all on the agenda for the new state legislature. Now that they're sworn in, Capitol Public Radio's Ben Adler reports on how they'll work with the next governor.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the convening of the 2019-2020 session of the Senate.
The lieutenant governor always presides over the state Senate's inaugural session. This time, it happened to be California's governor-elect, Gavin Newsom, whose own inauguration comes next month.
If you're wondering why I'm here, I'll remind you, I am the president of the Senate. 98% of you forgot. I'm just saying, it took me 7 years and 11 months to get to at this podium as your lieutenant governor.
Chief Justice Tani Kantil-Saka-Uwe administered the oath of office to the 20 of the 40 senators beginning new terms.
I state your name.
Over in the Assembly, all 80 members took the oath. Speaker Anthony Rendon opened his remarks by remembering the victims of California wildfires and of gun violence.
Let us all go beyond the usual moment of silence and use this moment to consider what we are here for, which is to make life better for every Californian. Let's think about what we will do in the next 2 years.
He then promised the legislature would fight to make the state's economy more just and fair for workers, for homeless people, and for other Californians struggling to get by. Assembly Republican leader Marie Waldron says the GOP will seek to work with Democrats on bipartisan challenges from housing affordability to wildfire prevention.
In a lot of ways, California leads the way on a lot of issues. So, we just need to make sure we're resonating with the residents of California and, being active in our districts and working for the people.
Democrats now control 60 of 80 assembly seats and 29 of 40 Senate districts after their victories in California congressional races trickled down to the state legislature. At the state capitol, I'm Ben Adler.
The San Diego Sports Arena will soon have a new name. This afternoon, the City Council approved a naming rights deal that would rename the facility Pechanga Arena San Diego. This San Diego Union Tribune reports the Pechanga Resort, which is based in Temecula, will pay $400,000 per year for the naming rights. The city will get a share of the revenue. The deal will last until May of 2020, when the city and the arena's operator are expected to renegotiate a new lease. Financial analysts say warning signs of an economic slowdown forced a big sell-off on Wall Street today. The Dow Jones Index lost nearly 800 points. The Nasdaq and SP 500 also lost more than 3%. Trade worries with China are also credited for today's slide. Stock markets will be closed tomorrow due to former President George H.W. Bush's funeral. The economy has steadily grown since the financial collapse a decade ago. In 2008, banks agreed to pay billions of dollars in settlement money. Marketplace reporter Tracy Samuelson tells us where all that money went.
On August 21, 2014, Attorney General Eric Holder walked to the podium at the Department of Justice, flanked by officials, and made an announcement.
The Department of Justice has reached an agreement with Bank of America totaling over $16.6 billion in penalties and consumer relief. This constitutes the largest civil settlement with a single entity in history.
By some estimates, the financial institutions have coughed up some $250 billion tied to the meltdown.
The Justice Department has reached a settlement of about $5 billion.
J.P. Morgan Chase is about to pay for its
The deal stems from the bank's role just before the 2008 financial crisis.
That $250 billion, that's enough to cover the annual bills of more than 4 million American households, or put over 1 million students through Harvard for 4 years.
Naturally, this got people wondering, where has that money gone?
To find out, I decided to track one fine in particular, that record-breaking Bank of America settlement from 2014.
The Bank of America settlement went to 3 places. The first was the federal government. It got about half of the $16.6 billion. Most of that went to fund general government operations, just like taxes. The second place the money went was to the states. About $1 billion was divided between California, Delaware, Illinois, Kentucky, New York, and Maryland, which were all involved in the settlement. And each of those states got to decide how they spent their money. California and Illinois, for example, they gave their money to state pension funds that had invested in these mortgage-backed securities. And the third place the money went was to consumers, about $7 billion worth.
So I went to see a guy named Eric Green. Green oversaw part of the $16.6 billion settlement between the Justice Department and Bank of America.
It was designed to not only punish Bank of America, but to provide assistance to people, individuals who were injured.
The settlement gave Bank of America a menu of different options, different ways that it could pay that consumer relief portion. But that wasn't all cash.
Well, the largest chunk of that money by far went to modify people's mortgages. Nearly 90,000 mortgages were modified or extinguished.
Other options for the bank? It could do things like subsidize affordable housing or donate actual physical homes.
They donated 1,455 either mortgages or actual properties.
So 90,000 mortgage modifications, 5,000 affordable housing units, a couple thousand donated properties. What does it all add up to?
Maybe 150,000 people total would be benefit in some way.
Which sounds both like a lot and not that much at the same time.
I agree. As big as this program was, and this was the largest program of its kind, but it was still too late for too many people.
The agreement also included some incentives. If the bank funded certain programs or got the money out quickly, it could reduce its overall bill. That means the headline $7 billion number is a little misleading.
Do you have a sense on what that actually means in dollar values for the bank?
So the bank delivered $7 billion of the consumer relief, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was less than $5 billion in actual cost.
About 150,000 people got assistance. And did it punish Bank of America?
As we know today, the financial sector and the large banks are back doing extremely well. And their profits in a year exceed the costs of this consumer relief.
So to review, where does the money from big bank fines go? Well, in this case, most went to the federal government. Some went to state governments. And
some of it went to help finance low-income housing, like this building in the Bronx.
Bank of America contributed about $4 million to this project. That got it about $15 million of settlement credit.
That's one of the reasons why I applied to this one, to the other one, to all of them.
So while it might be too late for those who lost their homes in the financial crisis,
it just might help some Americans in places like New York City who are weathering a different type of economic crisis: affordable housing.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the public pays respect as the 41st president lies in state at the U.S. Capitol. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
We have arrived.
It's another feat of engineering for NASA. The space agency worked with Lockheed Martin to reach an asteroid that's 76 million miles away. The spacecraft, named OSIRIS-REx, is the size of an SUV. The plan is to collect samples and return back to Earth in 2023. Scientists believe the ancient asteroid could hold evidence dating back to the beginning of the solar system. It took 7 minutes for that spacecraft to send a message back to Earth. Anissa Ramirez is a scientist and author who studies the way we communicate. She spoke with SciTech Now about social media and how the telegraph may have been a precursor.
So was Telegraph, was that the first Twitter?
I think it's the precursor to Twitter. For the same reasons that Twitter only has 140 characters or 280 characters, the Telegraph also only made people use very short sentences.
Because it was expensive.
It was expensive, but the reason why it was expensive is because you could only send one message on the line. So they tried to make sure that the line wasn't tied up.
Yeah, give me an idea of how it actually works. What happened when a telegraph message was sent and received?
Okay, so Samuel Morse created the telegraph, and what it is it's an electrical signal. If you hear a short pulse, that's a dot. If you hear a long pulse, that's a dash.
Morse code.
Morse code, right. That's right, exactly, exactly. And so when you see different dashes and dots collected in certain ways, those become a code that can mean a letter or it could mean a word. And so messages were very short. They would say something like, "Come home, Dad is sick," something like that. And you knew that you had to get to where you were going. Instead of long, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know our father has been ill," none of that. No time for that.
Is there a kind of a lasting impact that the telegraph has had on society? I mean, did it help us figure out how to write shorthand, how to write concisely?
A couple of things. SCOTUS, POTUS, OK, that's all from the telegraph. Also, America was trying to separate itself from England, and one of the ways that we did that was with language. So we wanted to have shorter sentences to begin with, but the telegraph also inspired that because newspapers were also one of the biggest customers of telegraph, and so anything you read in the newspaper would also have short sentences. But the most lasting impact was Hemingway. Hemingway was a reporter at a newspaper. He loved that short, sparse style that we were all encouraged to follow, and so Hemingway's style is a result of the telegraph.
Now, when we think about Twitter or all these other different kind of mediums that are coming on, these are self-expressions. But really, the telegraph was one of the first ways that I guess we were expressing what is the most important and urgent in the briefest amount of letters and words.
Right. Well, you know, we have to think about the time. People wrote long letters. And the telegraph was sort of like this cool thing that they did, but their primary way of communicating was actually the long letter. Now we have an assortment of different ways of communicating, and we mostly use shorter means of communicating. And so now linguists actually they express some concern, not solely for language. They're not worried about the health of the Oxford comma. They said that, you know, we can code switch between different types of writing. But it's the instant communication that's giving rise to another problem. And that's because we're losing our way in terms of being human. We aren't picking up empathy because we're so busy using emojis to communicate emotion, where we're not picking it up from someone's face. And that's what we do as humans. So that's the thing that most scientists and people who study language are really concerned about. Not so much the health of language. Language always changes. Technology is one of the forces that changes it. But it's also that we're losing some of our human skills.
All right. Anissa Ramirez, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I hope you had a wonderful day. I'm sure you've noticed it's getting a bit cloudy in spots, and that's because of that low pressure system that is slowly trekking to the east. We're already seeing some precipitation to the north of Los Angeles. We do expect to see soaking downpours along the coast and also mountain snow. If you're traveling in that direction, well, you could see a couple of delays. Now, across Southern California, right now it is just cloudy, and it will remain like that throughout tonight. Temperatures in Ramona, 38 tonight for the low. El Cajon at 45 and Oceanside at 43. In the metro area, it's going to be cloudy out there, 52 for the low temperature. Now tomorrow, that low pressure system, it drives closer and closer to the coast, and we are going to see that rain. It's going to start up, and it will continue for a day or two. And here's what you should expect temperature-wise. It's going to be cooler because of all that cloud coverage. San Diego only reaching 65 for the high. That's actually around average. It's just cooler than it has been lately. Chula Vista at 64, Ramona 59, and Mount Laguna reaching 46. And everyone's going to see some of that wet weather. Here's the timing. This is 6 a.m. and you can see it's just cloudy but dry. By 9 o'clock in the morning, we expect Oceanside to start seeing some of those showers. Still dry for now in San Diego, but that rain, it's going to come pushing through. By midday, we're talking around noon, we do expect to see a lot of people in the northern and western regions to see that rain, and it's going to continue. We will get a break around nighttime. This is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, maybe a bit of a break, but that wet weather, it's going to continue. Could even see some thunderstorms popping up on Thursday. Now, these are just preliminary numbers. We expect to see more than a ½ inch in San Diego, Mount Laguna, more than a ½ of an inch, Oceanside, around a ¼ of an inch of rain. But I do expect these numbers to change. We could see more than that. By late week, we're back to normal. It's going to be dry, sunny. So Wednesday, Thursday, grab those umbrellas. Expect some thunder on Thursday, and then sunny the rest of the week with temperatures getting a bit warmer. That's the case for the interior areas as well. The mountains, you'll see spotty showers, not as heavy as the coast, with sunshine the rest of the week in the 50s. And in the deserts, we'll see spotty showers as well, with that sunshine the rest of the week. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Nearly 3 miles of Interstate 5 will be shut down overnight through La Jolla. The closures begin at 9:30 and last until 5 in the morning. This will happen over the next 2 nights from the 805 to La Jolla Village Drive. The closures are related to work being done on the trolley extension. Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, the funeral of President George H.W. Bush. KPBS will carry NPR's special live coverage from Washington. And on Midday Edition, an exit interview with David Alvarez. The city council member tells us what's next as he prepares to leave City Hall. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.